Hey class, Prof. JC here, and this is our first video for this semester, and I'm excited about this semester. This might be one of my favorite classes because it's one of my favorite subjects that we get to talk about. And I think it is one of the most important subjects that you will look at, that you will reflect on during your time in graduate school. And I don't say that because I'm the one who's teaching it. I say that because this thing that we're going to talk about the entire summer and that you're going to reflect on and that we're going to read from authors and we're going to take a look at what other people say and we're going to write about it and talk about it. This thing is the thing that once you get this thing down, this idea of purpose, everything changes in your life. And your life gets so much more focused. And I think that's the most important thing for any kind of a leader, business leader, nonprofit leader, entrepreneur, whatever it is that you're going into, executive, to have a focused life, I think is one of the most important things. It's interesting because today I'm actually recording this from Tacoma, Washington, so about 3 hours north of San Diego by flight. And I pull in, and the hotel that I'm staying at, it's at a place called Point Ruston, and it overlooks the Commencement Bay. It's right out there right now. And you might actually hear, I've got my windows open right here. You can kind of see them cracked, and you might hear there's a whole bunch of families down here. I'm on the fourth floor, but there's a whole bunch of families down here who kind of enjoying the afternoon and the early evening. But the bay is called Commencement Bay. And so when I saw that, and I knew I was going to be recording this, I thought it's a pretty cool thing, I guess, for me, maybe. Commencement, if you know anything about commencement, it means the beginning, right? So this is the time of year when colleges and high schools have commencements, okay? And so I always thought as a kid that meant the end of something. It doesn't mean the end, it means the beginning. So when you graduate, it's not the end of anything, it's the beginning of what's coming next. And so I thought that was interesting that I saw that, because I thought commencement is exactly what purpose is all about. Purpose is the beginning, it's the start, it's where everything should begin in all of our lives. Is to take a look at why and that's what purpose is. Okay, if you've had me before in classes, I talk about the PVM PV model. I used to call it the PVM model, but I actually switched that because it's a constantly evolving thing. I'm trying to get better about it, do more research as time goes on. This is something I really believe in. And what the PVM stands for, but now it's PVM PV. Okay, it might sound confusing, but I'll explain why this is important. PVM/PV, purpose, vision, mission / principles, values. When an organization or a team has these 5 things down: purpose, vision, mission / principles, values, those 5 things, life just gets so much easier. Okay. Now, discovering the PVM PV, that's the hard part. And that's the part that most people don't want to do the work on. And that's why most people live unfocused lives. That's why people live lives where they find themselves, it's almost like that saying, you've heard it before. You don't want to if you're climbing the ladder of success, you don't want to get all the way up the ladder of success and realize it's leaning up against the wrong wall. But many people do that. And that's why they have these things, because, they get to their 40s, mid 40s, like I am, and they get to this stage in life and they have what we would call a midlife crisis. And it's really not a midlife crisis. I think that's a poor term, because here's what I've seen with most people. A midlife crisis is actually they've discovered kind of who they are. And what they've discovered is the last 20 years they've been climbing and they've got their ladder up against the wrong wall. Maybe they realized that they were in the wrong career. Maybe they realized they married the wrong person. Maybe they realized they were in the wrong city. Maybe they realized they were working for the wrong company. Now, the consequences of their choices when they get to my stage in life, like 45, 50, and they have what we call a midlife crisis, the consequences can be absolutely devastating for everybody around them. But I've talked to people, specifically men, who've gone through this, what on the outside looks like a midlife crisis. And really, what I've heard time and time again is people say, I finally discovered who I am. I finally realized that this isn't the marriage I should have been. I finally realized that this isn't the job I should have been. So it looks crazy to everybody else, because it looks like they're just upsetting the apple cart and changing their whole life. But really, what it is they've just discovered who they are. Okay. So I say that to say it takes people a long time. And if you're not intentional, these are the kind of things that can happen. Okay. And some of you have seen this before. You've seen people have midlife crises. But I would switch your thinking around that and say it's probably someone who's been living for 25 years, probably an inauthentic life, maybe a life that they would consider to be a lie. And then they discover what it is, but they discovered it at 40, 45, 50. And again, everyone else around them pays a huge price because they now have discovered their purpose. There is something selfish to that. And this is why I always tell people the best you can, if you can figure out your purpose early on in life, in your 20s, early 30s, right? The best that you can do that, then once you kind of get that going, life gets focused. And I would say this, and I don't have any data to back this up, but I'd say this from my own perspective, my own life. The life becomes much more fulfilled when you're living out of your purpose versus just trying to pay the bills, which we all have to. Okay. And you might be in a season where that has to happen. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. But this class right here has the potential to really direct you and to get you going in the right place. So what is purpose? Purpose is, okay? Purpose is the why. It's the reason why you exist. It's the reason why you get yourself up every single day. Simon Sinek says this, and I didn't come off, I'm not stealing anything off of him, but I agree with him. He's got a great book out there called Start with Why. And that's what he talks about for companies. The most important thing that you can do for any kind of a company or even for a person, for a life, is to figure out why you do what you do, why you exist, and everything kind of flows outside of that. Even from an organizational perspective, I was just doing a training the other day for an organization for, I think it was no, it wasn't yes, it was. It was the CDC. So I was working with one of their departments, and they're going through this training where they're looking at setting goals and coaching. And so we backed all the way up, and I said, well, you're going to walk through the PVM method. They're going to do that together. And so we did. And I think for some people in there, it was a little bit eye-opening to realize that they're setting all kinds of goals, but the wrong thing about it, or they're going about it in the wrong way because they're setting goals without knowing what their purpose and vision is. And I would say that oftentimes many of us are doing that same kind of thing, and we find ourselves in those same kind of situations where we're setting goals every day. We got to get up and do this, and this, but we haven't really stopped to look at, well, what's the larger purpose? Okay, because once you understand the purpose, what becomes really clear is that a lot of goals that you're setting for yourself really aren't. Once you know what your purpose is, you realize, okay, these goals are completely wrong. And it goes back to the ladder's leaning up against the wrong wall. I don't want that for any of you. Okay. I want you to walk a life that is purpose-based and purpose-filled. And I'm passionate about this because I had to do a lot of work around this, and I had to switch up an entire career, and it was painful. It was incredibly, it was one of the toughest 18 months of my life to make that switch and go through rejection and rejection and rejection and rejection. But today I'm getting on the plane and I'm flying up here to Seattle, and I'm walking through the Seattle airport, and I'm remembering that this was the airport here. Now, I've been to Seattle many times since then, but it just hits me every now and then. That airport, I remember back when I was 19 years old, I was lost. I was completely lost, but I was in the military, and I flew out to Seattle right before they flew us over to South Korea for a year. And South Korea was beautiful. It actually turned out to be a good year, but I just remember being lost. I'll never forget being in that airport. I don't think I'd ever been in a large airport, before. I just remember actually being lost in the airport, trying to find my way around. And it was just a weird time. And so to come back today at 45, 20 something years later, and to feel great about life and to have a purpose-filled life, to be focused, but all the pain that has had to happen in my own life, to get there, uh, it's so worth it. And so, what I would say, the reflection we're going to do this year, or not this year, but this summer, over the next few weeks, I hope even for if one or two of you walk out of this class and you say it's worth it, I understand my purpose better, then this class has been worthwhile. Now, I want to say two things, and then I'm gonna leave you alone and let you get to it. Okay. Two things I want you to understand. One is this: purpose must be, in this class, this is the baseline for what we're going to talk about here. Okay. Purpose must be based on service to others and service to the marketplace. Okay. Service to others and service to the marketplace. Now I'm gonna dive in a little bit more on that here in just a second. But here's what you got to understand: if you're going to live a successful life, you have to be responding to the needs of others, and you have to be responding to the needs of the marketplace. Okay. Now, I'm not, so this is not a personal development thing. Obviously, we have to take care of ourselves first, right? You've all been on an airport, and they tell you when the mask comes down, you've got to put yours on first before you take care of. So yes, but we're not talking about personal development here. I'm going deeper into this idea of purpose, and I just want to lay it down for you. Okay. I want to give you something to think. If your purpose is not focused on other people, okay, if your purpose is not focused on other people, I promise you it's not going to be a purpose that you're going to be able to stick to very long. Okay. A purpose that is going to drive you for years and for decades is a purpose. And I don't care if you're making a ton of money. Good for you. Okay. That's not what this is about. I'm not saying you got to go be a nonprofit executive. I'm not saying you've got to give it all up and go be a monk or go be a nun somewhere. I'm not saying any of that. Okay. Purpose is just, it has to be, when you figure it all out, you've got to understand that it's got to be focused on the world around you. Okay. And here's where this comes to, here's why I want you to begin thinking about purpose that way: that if you come up with a purpose at the end of this semester and you read it back and it's just about you, okay, my purpose is to lose 20 pounds. My purpose is to be in the gym 4 days a week. My purpose is to, get this master's degree done or whatever. That's not a purpose. Okay. Now these are things that you may do along the way to help you achieve your purpose. Okay. These might be part of your mission, part of your principles and values, but a purpose, it's the reason you exist. And part of that reason has to be giving back. And here's the reason why I say this. Okay. In the marketplace, the most successful companies are serving the marketplace. They're listening to the needs of the market. That's the most important thing. Okay. And I'll tell you this: the most successful leaders that the most successful people the reason why they're so successful is because they're listening, they're in tune with what's going on around them, and they're serving the people around them. So if you can do those two things, right, serve the marketplace, serve other people, well, you've got a gangbuster's life. But here's why I want us to go a little bit deeper with this, because serving the marketplace, there really are no morals in the marketplace. The marketplace is built on the needs and wants of human beings. Okay. Human beings. There's a show I watch out there called Succession. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on HBO Max right now. Phenomenal show. It's like my third time watching the entire show right now. But the CEO, Logan Roy, his character, he's sitting in this diner and he's sitting there with his chief security guard in the scene that I was watching yesterday. I think it's season 3 or something like that. Or maybe it's season 4, episode 1 or 2. And he's sitting in the diner with his chief security guard and he's looking around and he was like, what are people? He said, what are people? And he said, each of these people in here are economic units. And he said, because he's a multi-billionaire, he said, I'm a giant compared to these people. These people are peasants. He says something like that. Okay. Now this is a character. This show is about a guy who is just so narcissistic, and it's all about him, and it shows the dark side of kind of money and fame and all this kind of stuff. But I got to thinking as he said that, and I thought that there is something about that. Okay. About human beings being economic units. And what he talked about is when these economic units come together, they create a powerful market and they drive everything. One human being that makes, $50,000-$60,000 a year is probably not going to drive much, but you get, 100,000 human beings that make 50,000-60,000, that's going to drive an entire market. You get 1 million people, right, who make $50,000, $60,000 a year, but they're all moving in one direction. They have a certain want, a certain need. That's going to drive the market. Okay, and so there is an element when we think about purpose that we've got to be listening to the marketplace. But here's the deal: there are a lot of things out there that serve the marketplace. Okay, they serve the needs of the marketplace. They serve all of the economic units out there, but they're not really building up the marketplace. So here's what I want to say. I want to go deeper and say purpose should be, if you just want to figure out your purpose for your organization or for yourself, you look at it and you say, what does the marketplace need? What does it want? Maybe if you're really brilliant, you go create something and then you market it well enough, you sell it well enough where you tell the market what it needs and what it wants. Okay. Think Tesla, right? Nobody was talking about Tesla 20 years ago. We all knew we wanted cars, but Elon Musk has put it out there. Now people think they need to have a Tesla, right? I hear people say that sometimes. So you can do that. But there are other things I think are a little bit more dangerous. Okay. And I want you to think about I'm just going to throw a couple ideas out there for you. You think about McDonald's. Okay. They are serving the market. Okay. They are serving quick, easy meals to families and individuals and people that don't want to have to cook. They just want to be able to rip open the bag, eat the food, put the bag back together and throw it away, and it's done. It's easy. It's fast food. Okay. But I want you to think about, is McDonald's building people up? Is McDonald's here? And here's the word that I want you to think about. Is McDonald's truly empowering people? Okay. Now, in some ways they are. Now, again, there's no morals in the marketplace. Okay. In any marketplace, it's just the needs and wants of people. So are they empowering? Yes, they're providing jobs for people. They're feeding people at cheaper cost. Yes. So in some ways you can make the argument that McDonald's is empowering people. But when I say empower, okay, that word means that you are lifting up people, that you are giving power away. You are making people more powerful. That's what it is, right? So in a leadership context, in an organization, a leader who empowers others takes his or her power and gives it to somebody else and empowers them with that responsibility. Now, they also have accountability and all that stuff. We could talk about empowerment all day, but empowerment, what that means is that you're giving power that you have, you're giving it away, and you are literally making a person more powerful. You're making an organization, a community more powerful. Does McDonald's do that? There's a huge argument that no, it doesn't really empower people. Okay. There's a lot of chemicals going into your body every time you eat McDonald's. Now, again, let's get our family. We had Taco Bell the other night, and I can't. It's the last time I will ever eat it. And I said that the last time. I think the last time I had Taco Bell was like, I admit, it's like 2 years ago. And Joss, my 8-year-old daughter, loves it, and so she wanted it the other night. And so, okay, fine, we'll get Taco Bell. She had a really good night, and it just was the most disgusting thing that I put in my. So there's nothing good about it. I didn't feel empowered after eating that. And that's just how fast food works. There are other products out there. Okay, you think about alcohol, right? Is alcohol nice to have? Yes, right. I love a good glass of wine, Sauvignon Blanc or something like that. A good glass of whiskey, right? An old fashioned. I love to enjoy those from time to time. But when you really study alcohol and what it does to the brain, what it does to the body, right? There are really no. I know people say red wine, but it's not the good tasting red wine. It's the dry red wine. That's the stuff, and it's like 1 glass a day. That's what they say could be healthy for you. But if you really study alcohol, there's really not much good that alcohol brings to people, their bodies, or their societies. And most people, the more they drink, the more they feel out of control, the more they lose power. Okay. So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about other things that are in the marketplace. Okay. One of my classes, we talked about this a while back. We talked about pornography. Pornography is a huge multi-billion-dollar business. And in one of the classes, we got off on a tangent about how that business got built. And there was a business plan behind it. There was marketing. It didn't just these gross people come out and like make this thing happen. No, there were actually some geniuses that have taken the pornography industry to what it is today. But I would ask you, does pornography empower people? Okay. Does it lift up people? Does when people experience that in whatever it is, okay, do they walk away feeling more power or do they walk away feeling a little bit more shame? Okay. And I would say because it's not something people do in the light, it's usually something that people do in the dark. And for many years before it became all over the website, it was something you absolutely would do in the dark, and you would find these seedy little joints all over the place, and that's where people would go in and kind of look at this stuff. It's always done in secret. So is that something now the people who've created it and who've taken it to where it is today, have they answered needs of the marketplace? Yes. They created a purpose out of it and it served the needs of the marketplace, of course. But here's what I want you to think about, and this is the point I want to make, and then I'm going to let you go. When you think this summer about your purpose, yes, it's serving the needs of the marketplace, it's serving the needs of other people. But I want to take it further, and I want to go to our mantra, our motto at the FSP, which is more than the bottom line. And more than the bottom line, here's what it means for us this summer. Okay. It's kind of a two-part, right? It means more, or it's really kind of a three-part. More than the bottom line from a business perspective is we want you to create more money. We want you to have a greater bottom line. We want you to bring in, if you set a certain profit, level that, or a goal that you're going to do in fiscal year 2024, we hope that you surpass that number. Okay. We want that. We want more than the bottom line. Okay. That's kind of from a business perspective. From a leadership perspective, and leadership is really people oriented. It's focused on people. We want you to remember it's about people, right? From a personal development perspective, more than the bottom line means that you reach your full and highest potential. Okay. So if you're thinking about purpose, I want you to think about it from a perspective of more than the bottom line. And more than the bottom line means this. From a business perspective, yes, you're going to make a lot of money when you understand your purpose and your business understands its purpose, your organization understands its purpose. From a personal perspective, okay, or excuse me, from a leadership perspective, and this is kind of where I want you to kind of put the focus on, it's about empowering other people. Okay. It's building other people up. It's taking it further than the bottom line. And so as you're thinking about the businesses that you will be a part of, as you're thinking about the work that you will do in society, in the marketplace, I want to challenge you this summer to really be thinking about, is what I'm looking at doing, is it something that really empowers other people and empowers the marketplace? And that means when people walk away from your product, people walk away from your service, people walk away from something you've created, something that you're empowering, something that you're developing, whatever it is, your business model, when they walk away from experiencing that thing, they walk away and say, I am more powerful because I did that thing that you created. I am more powerful because you are, you stepped in their life. This sounds cheesy, but I'm trying to tell you, this is what it's about. Even from a business perspective, I was just reading something about this on the plane up here today, and it talked about great businesses understand. I was reading about Coca-Cola. Why is Coca-Cola so successful? The thing that they've understood for many years, they're not selling a drink, they're selling an experience, they're selling feeling. And the two of the words that they use a lot are enjoyment, and I think it's enjoyment and fulfillment, or happiness. No, enjoyment and happiness. Those words come up a lot with Coca-Cola. So when you think of Coke, like the polar bear, right, that they have at Christmas time, oh, that's so cute and cuddly, and all the colors they have, and you're like, oh man, I want to go drink a Coke. It's not about the Coke, it's about they understand we're selling the experience. In the marketplace, okay, I want to encourage you, sell power. And what that means, when people do whatever it is that you bring into the marketplace, and on a personal level, your own purpose, when people interact with you, they experience you, they walk away more powerful than they walk away powerful, not from a weak standpoint. You haven't taken from them. You all have been around people like that, where after spending an hour with someone, you're exhausted and you don't want to see that person again for another 8 weeks because they've just taken it all out of you. That's not what we're talking about. You've all been I hate to admit this, all right, but I'm just going to admit it real quick. I watched the roast of Tom Brady on Netflix. I'm a huge Tom Brady fan, and so I watched, and I'll tell you, it was good. Okay, now I'm not endorsing it as a professor at Point Loma. I'm not endorsing it. I'm not telling you need to watch it. I'm not endorsing it in any way. I'm just going to make that clear. What I'm saying is I watched it. But let me tell you this. When I got done watching it, I was drained. Okay. There was so much, it's like the jokes went so far over. Okay. And they were funny. And in that world, football, I mean, I spent 4 years in the military. I understand how that all works. But I was drained after watching it. Okay. It kind of took something from me. That wasn't an empowering feeling. Okay. I want you and your product, your service, your business to empower, and that's where purpose comes. So here's the question I want to ask for you today, and I want you to think about this. Number one, okay, what is purpose? Okay, so that's the first question. Based on this podcast, don't go research it and give me some academic or some Wikipedia definition. Based on this, what we just talked about, well, what is purpose? Based on this podcast, okay, what does empowerment and purpose have to do with each other? Okay. Based on this podcast we talked about, don't go off online and look at what we just talked about. Why is understanding more than the bottom line important when it comes to purpose? That's your third question. So the first question is, what is purpose? The second question, okay, how are purpose and empowerment intertwined? What does purpose have to do with empowerment? What does empowerment have to do with purpose, right? So that's your second question. Third question, oh my goodness, I should have written these down. See, I do this all the time. Third question, what does purpose have to do with more than the bottom line? Okay. And and what does that mean when we talk about what does that mean more than the bottom line? Okay. And then our fourth question for today, based on everything that we just talked about when it comes to this idea of purpose, okay. Um, when we talk about service to other people, what is the most important thing from your perspective? Okay. What is the most important thing based on what we just talked about? What's the most important thing that you've got to keep in the back of your mind when it comes to purpose? Those are your four questions for this week. I look forward to reading your responses. Spend a little bit extra time on this one because I think it's important that we lay the foundation for what purpose is. It doesn't have to be by the end of summer, it doesn't need to be some massive thing like you're going to go out there and change the world. Okay. Some of you will. Some of you will decide, I'm just going to be a great dad. I'm going to be a great mom. I'm going to be a great partner, be a great spouse. I'm going to impact my world wherever I'm at in the best way possible. Okay. So it doesn't have to be major. It doesn't have to be big, but it has to be what we've talked about in this podcast. Thanks so much for listening. I'm going to go outside and spend a little time out here with all these Tacoma people and just kind of see what this culture is about up there. And I look forward to reading your responses. You take care, everybody.